Hello, today I want to experiment with a new format. I will be reading last week news from my Avilionov News channel. The news that I found the most interesting. So let's start with the public exploits. Researchers at Positive Technologies have dropped a proof of concept exploit on Twitter for a known cross-site scripting vulnerability in the Cisco Adaptive Security Appliance, Cisco ASA, CV 2020-3580. So this flaw was patched in October, and there are reports of researchers pursuing bug bounties using this exploit. So they use this exploit in the bug bounty. So maybe you should also do this, or at least you should ask your IT administrators if they have updated the ASA. The second exploit is F5 Big IO VE post-auth remote root remote code execution. So what is Big IQ? Big IQ provides a single point of management for all your Big IP devices, whether they are on premises or in a public or a private cloud. So it was possible to execute commands with root privileges as an authenticated privileged user via command injection in easy setup test connection. So a good reason to check if you have these in the infrastructure. These I mean Big IP devices and Big IQ. But of course the fact that this is post-auth makes it less interesting. The third one, VMware vCenter 656770 remote code execution. From the description of the vulnerability that was published in February 2021, quote, the vSphere client, HTML5 client, contains a remote code execution vulnerability in a vCenter server plugin. A malicious actor with network access to port 443 may exploit this issue to execute commands with unrestricted privileges on the underlying operating system that hosts vCenter server. So, if your IT colleges have not patched vCenter since February, you can try to demonstrate how this vulnerability is exploited in practice. Next one is Solaris Sun SSH 11 remote root. So, quote, CV 2020-14871 is a critical pre-authentication stack-based buffer overflow vulnerability in the pluggable authentication model or PAM in Oracle Solaris. So it was introduced in Solaris back in 1997 as part of Solaris 2.6. The idea is that if you are still using Solaris in your infrastructure, it's a great opportunity to try this exploit. Dlink DSL 2750U reboot command injection. There, in the exploit code, there is a link to the full study that shows how the researcher, Mohammed Hadi, gains admin access to the router. This is interesting considering that this router model is quite popular and you can still buy such a router and hack it. And the next one is called It's 2021 and a printf format string and a wireless network name can break iPhone Wi-Fi. So on Friday, Carl Ho, a security researcher in Denmark, reported that his iPhone lost its Wi-Fi capability after attempting to connect to a Wi-Fi network named %P, %S, 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 %N. Fortunately, the damage appeared not to be permanent. Apple iOS devices that lose Wi-Fi capability after being bitten by this bug can be restored via General Reset Network Settings menu option, which reverts network settings to their factory defaults. Not a very interesting vulnerability in terms of practical exploitation, but it's fun. Don't connect to unfamiliar Wi-Fi networks. Now let's see some interesting new vulnerabilities. Critical Palo Alto Cyber Defense bug allows remote war room access. Quote, a critical security bug in Palo Alto Networks Cortex XOR, XSOAR, could allow remote attackers to run commands and automations in the Cortex XOR war room and to take other actions on the platform without having to log in. If you have Palo Alto Networks Cortex XOR, you should patch it. The second one, Cisco HyperFlex HX auth handling remote command execution. So what is Cisco HyperFlex HX data platform? It's a high-performance extensible distributor file system that supports multiple hypervisors with a wide range of enterprise-grade data management and optimization services. The third one, VMware has rolled out security updates to resolve a critical flaw affecting Carbon Black app control that could be exploited to bypass authentication and take control of vulnerable systems. The fourth one, NVIDIA Jetson chipset found vulnerable to high-severity flaws. So what is NVIDIA Jetson? It's a line of embedded Linux AI and computer vision compute models and developer kits. So if you work with autonomous systems such as mobile robots and drones, maybe you use this stuff. And the fifth one, on June 22, SonicWall published an advisory to address incomplete fix for a vulnerability in its operating systems, Sonic OS, used a variety of SonicWall networks security devices, including their SSL VPNs. One news about the malware. Pretty unique malware. Cybersecurity researchers are sounding the alarm bell over a new ransomware strain called DarkRadiation that implemented entirely in Bash and targets Linux and Docker cloud containers while banking on messaging service Telegram for command and control communications. The ransomware is written in Bash script and targets Red Hat, CentOS, and Debian Linux distributions. The malware uses OpenSSL IS algorithm with CBC mode to encrypt files in various directories. Also, two articles with interesting statistics that you can use for your presentations. Time to patch increases significantly during pandemic. Among some of the headline findings in the data was a sharp decrease in the frequency with which disclosed vulnerabilities are patched in under 24 hours. It dropped from 20% last year to 9% today, despite new vulnerabilities or 0 days being quickly exploited by malicious actors, as has been seen in many cases even before disclosure. The survey also found that about 60% of organizations take more than 72 hours to patch, and more than 20% take over 30 days to patch. And the second one, set it and forget it. Attitude to open source software has become a major security problem, says Veracode. 92% of the flaws discovered in the third-party libraries could be fixed by simply updating to the latest versions, with 2/3 of fixes being minor or non-destructive to the functionality of even the most complex software applications. The reports also highlighted that a slim majority, 52%, of developers claim to have a formal process for the selection of the third-party libraries, which a quarter saying they are either unsure or unaware of the existence of such a process, and that security is the third biggest concern when selecting a library, with functionality in licensing topping the leaderboard. Also, I want to highlight one promising topic. Google on Thursday introduced a unified vulnerability schema for open source projects. So what it is about? As Google describes it, existing naming systems like the CPE product dictionary don't provide an easy way to automatically map a CV vulnerability listening to a package name and a set of versions in a package manager. With this schema, we hope to define a format that all vulnerability database can export. So we will keep an eye on this. Well, it would be probably worth ending with the words about John McAfee. Antivirus pioneer John McAfee found dead in Spanish prison cell. I do not presume to say anything about the crimes of which he was accused. In any case, he was an information security legend, and his whole life was cooler than any Hollywood blockbuster. I recommend watching videos on his YouTube channel about attack attribution and the current state of infrastructure security. He said some pretty unpopular things there, and some of them are very interesting. And the way it ended is, of course, very sad and tragic. So, John, rest in peace. That's it for today. Please subscribe and leave your comments. Bye.